Hey, we are getting on with our human design series, and today's one, I am biased. It's my favorite because that is the type that I am. And today we're going to talk about the authority known as environmental, or it can be called mental. And the only type that this authority is a projector. Now, if you're an environmental projector, you will have only 2 or 3 centers defined. And these are either, they can be the throat and the head or the ajna. So obviously 2 out of those need to be connected. And everything else is open. Nothing else in the chart is colored. There's no other channels happening from the throat down. Now for myself, I only have the head in the ajna, so I don't even have the throat defined. That's open as well. And there's about 2 to 3% of the population have this authority. Now, when we're looking at projectors, there's 3 main types of projectors. And I don't think I've touched on this before, but there are what we call classic projectors, there's energy projectors, and then there's environmental projectors. And that third group is also what we're talking about today. So there's only really one authority of projectors that are this type of projectors, and they are very close to reflectors in certain ways. They're not reflectors though, and this would be the type that is, or this authority as well, would be the most absorbing human design type. Now with a reflector, right, all of their centers are open, so they are sensitive in that way, but their aura works in a different way. Whereas a projector is very much what people might call is piercing. We are like hooking into your energy center. And the purpose of that is so that when we can give guidance, it's very personal. It's not general. It's not something that we would say to the next person or the person that we said before. It's very specific to you or like a group, usually more one-on-one, but it's very specific to the situation and the matter that's at hand. And that then coupled with all these open centers, none of which are what we would consider body centers generally. I mean, the head is still connected to the body, but in human design, we don't really see the head as like as a inner authority. And so this is also one of 2 types of authorities that are what we call outer authorities. Now, the only other type is a reflector. So the only types that have an outer authority are reflectors and environmental projectors. And that just all happens to be myself, being an environmental projector. And because they have all these open centers, it's an interesting ride. They aren't here to push. They're not here to initiate. They're not supposed to chase recognition. They're designed to read the room and pick up on what others can't see and gently guide or adjust. And the timing and invitation has to be like so perfect for them to be able to work in the correct way, as we would call it in human design. So yeah, they're very observant in, or they are to be very observant in the environments that they are in. You know, they're here to like refine and guide environments, systems, and energy, not through force, but through very subtle shifts. And they can help others optimize their energy. Like that is what they're all about. And again, because they are a projector, they still require to be seen or heard, recognized, and then invited for their gifts. If that's not done, then they're to take a seat back. You know, if it's in a space where there's lots of people or it's a one-on-one, just take a seat back and just observe. And if they're not doing that, then they're to be out of the environment, you know, having that time to recalibrate, to reset, to restore their energy, because they're not considered an energy type. You know, there are, like I said, there are projectors that are considered energy projectors and they have a little bit more energy than others, but they're like the least energetic, and the only other least energetic is the reflector. So yes, but there's that sensitivity of the way that their aura works. They're always like pulling in other energy fields because they're here to guide, you know. Now, how do they make decisions? Now, this is quite an interesting one because it's a little bit like the one we spoke of earlier, where they have like this sort of the G or the identity center defined, and it's that self-projected projector, in the sense that they are to soundboard, but with the throat defined and G defined self-projected projector, they can soundboard on what we might call inanimate objects. So they can do it with people, but they can also do it with trees. They can also just speak it out loud. So it's just going to be outside their body in general. But when you're an environmental projector, you are supposed to soundboard with an actual person. And this is the slightly challenging aspect to it, because you have to find people that are very objective and they're aware of the process that is required for you to go through to make these decisions. Now, this is decisions about your own life, in a sense. When it's about others, it's like, you know, it's just there. It's always on the tip of the tongue, just waiting for that invitation. When it's coming to making your own decisions, you know, is a decision about, you've been given an invitation. Is it the right invitation? Are you to go here? Are you to go there? Where do you place your energy? All of that. Now, with the soundboarding, is you speaking. It doesn't even have to make any logical sense whatsoever. But when you're speaking to a person, they understand the process that you're going through. They don't require, you're not requiring their any guidance. They're there purely as a soundboard. And, you know, depending on what energy centers they have defined, it's going to help you have little sparks of clarity of the answer that you are seeking about your own decisions that you need to make. And you'll hear it in your voice when you're speaking it out to a person. And again, the answers that you are going to get may not be nothing to do with what's actually being spoken of, but you're in the process of the decision making. You may wish to do this with a number of different people, not at the same time, but one-on-one, just especially when you're starting out with this experiment to see, okay, am I getting the same answer? Okay, rightio. And then eventually you might get to the point where you just need to speak to one person. And make sure it's not always the same person, you know, share your needs with more than one person. I'm sure many of you are aware of that these days. And that's how you're going to get your clarity. It's that soundboarding. You know, you may have to tell people, hey, look, there's this process I go through. It's called soundboarding. This is what I require from you. This is what I'm going to probably do. And are you willing to sit in with this with me? And if they're not, or they start to diverge from the process, then you're just going to have to go find someone else to do that with. Now, the little specialty of environmental projectors is that they are predominantly designed to guide, obviously, many other types, but very specifically other projectors as well. So they're here to guide the classic and the energy projectors. You can also guide the manifestors the manifesting generators and the generators. The thing with guiding manifestors as a projector, it has to be like they really, really do want your guidance, because manifestors are not really designed to be guided. But there'll be times where they may want some guidance from you, and it has to be very clear, and they have to really do want it. They're not just saying that they want it because they think that they want it. So you have to really attune quite carefully to the manifestors if they are wanting guidance from you, and really checking in with them. Are you sure that you would really like guidance from me? You know, and yeah, I mean, they're also like stepping outside of just the human design categories. The environmental projector is one of those types that's just great for working with visionaries. You know, there's just this aspect where we can really tap into that visionary aspect, you know, that for reflection and refining. You know, we're here to help you recognize what your gifts are. And we love being able to assist people when we've got that energy, you know, because of the type that we are. We do require a lot more of time in our own space. Because they're environmental projectors, they're also highly influenced by the environment. So if you're not with the right people and in the right place, you won't be able to make the right decisions, and you also won't be able to be of the best service to the people there. Or you actually could need to be in another space where people and environments really do need your guidance, and they really would appreciate it. So yeah, it's important if you try and remove yourself as often as you can from spaces that are not the right environment for you, because it's not the right place or it's not the right people. Because if you're not, then you are, how do I put this? You're being in disservice to the gifts that you've been given, and it's not being used for the purposes that you have been gifted. Yeah, it's a disservice to humanity. You could look at it in that way as well. So yeah, how does environmental projectors sort of like protect their space and step into their power? Is, you know, it's a lot of, like I said before, removing yourself from environments where you're not welcome, or you're not fully seen for the gifts that you could have to offer. You know, you're waiting for the invitation, the recognition. If that's not coming, then you're not supposed to be out there seeking it. You're to be, you know, attending to the things that you need to do. There could be particular things that you're really into, creating, researching, whatever it might be. So put your time and energy into those things until a person is like, hey, I see you're really good at this. Like, I need help with this website that I'm designing, you know, whatever it might be. And obviously rest a lot. It's really important for you to rest. And be still to be wise is a saying that never gets old. You know, and if you're not an environmental projector, well, how do I support the environmental projectors around me? Well, one of them is recognize them, affirm their presence. You know, we're not saying that we need to be praised or anything. You know, before the time of projectors, we were more of a seven-centered beings. You know, this nine-centered being came along with the recognition of Uranus and other planets thereafter. Before that, it was like seven-centered beings, and there was just the four types. You know, there was the manifestors that were the kings and queens, and generators, manufacturing generators. They were really, you know, they were getting the things done. They were really holding the load of being able to carry out the processes that were required to make things happen. And, you know, and then you still had the reflectors. Then with the introduction of the projectors, it was, you know, it was not like we disregard the kings and queens. It was more of stepping into their self-authority, more of a sovereignty, more of a connecting in with the higher realms, if I can put it. You know, insert whatever your belief system is there. And that was no longer like looking to the kings and queens as to what we are to do. You know, manifestors still have an important part to play. They're here to initiate. But yeah, the projectors are here about, okay, so this is the life that you're playing out. Does it serve you? Is this what you really want? Where is it that you feel you need to refine your time, your energy? And projectors are all about that. So, you know, don't ask for help from a projector when you don't want it. That's also a really painful experience for us to go through. When it's expressed, oh, I want it. You know, if we're obviously doing our work, we're going to know that it's just you saying it and you don't actually genuinely want to help. But please don't put us through that either, of having to either A, discern it, or B, having to then like reject you later because like you're not actually wanting our assistance. You know, so yeah, if you're wanting a projector in your life and you're wanting an environmental projector to help you, you have to invite them. You have to actually, like, it's best to explicitly express that outside of yourself. But you know, obviously you can energetically invite them, and if you're in relationship with them, quite close, maybe it's intimate, then you know they can obviously become quite attuned to that. It's not always explicitly required, but we do like to actually hear it, because then it's a confirmation of like, okay, yeah, this is actually what the person's wanting from us. Respect their space. So we can't keep up with we can't keep up with generators, we can't keep up with manifesting generators, and we sure can't keep up with manifestors when they're on a high. Like, please don't expect us to. We can be in it for a short while, but we need to exit. We just don't have the energy to operate like that, especially not for long periods of time. It will start to really stress the body, and will actually become quite ill, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, from that. And listen to them when they speak, especially if you've asked us. If you've asked us for guidance and then you don't want to hear it from us, again, it goes back to like, only ask us when you really actually like, you're certain you do want our input. We're energetic architects. We are like gentle guides. We're masters of subtlety. And the next one we're going to go into is reflectors. There's only one type of reflector, and they're really the smallest percent of the world are reflectors, and they go through a similar decision-making process, but they have another element to it, which we're going to talk about. So that will be the next vlog that we talk about in human design, in this human design series, and we'll see you again soon.